I do know one person that actually won, an acquaintance really. I work for a CPA review company, and we have seminars that prepare people for the CPA exam. And this one lady actually, she found out right before the seminar that she won 1/3 out of a 12 million lottery thing. So she actually, and amazingly enough, she came back and actually sat through the rest of the seminar because she said she worked so hard for the CPA exam. She was $3 million richer and still sat through the thing.
A friend of mine won the Canadian lottery once.
Really? How much?
I think it was like $1.5 million.
No, someone, it's like, I don't know them personally. A friend of mine, his cousin, who I've never met, I know it's a friend of a cousin of a thing, but he actually did, he always wanted to go to his intersection and throw money into the wind, and he did that. I mean, it was just like $5 bills, but he did that after winning the lottery, but he didn't win that much, but he was well off, so he didn't really keep it.
I've heard of somebody who won it big. Fourth hand. I've known some people who've won some dribbles, you know, a $5 bet here, a $5 off of a dollar, 5-1 here, or I think $100 one time.
My girlfriend's grandfather won $250,000. Matter of fact, about 30 days ago.
I didn't know him really well, but I worked in a play up in Northern California, and this guy, he had just graduated from high school and he won.
Our office pool won 5 out of 6 numbers when it was 50 million a couple months ago, but we only won like $170 each.
On July 31st, 1994, I went to my local drugstore and bought $20 worth of lottery tickets of the scratch variety, $5, and I scratched one and had a $2 million winner on it.
I was sitting upstairs on the phone talking with Steve, a friend of mine, in fact a friend of Jimmy's. This is what, July 31st or something. I was talking on the phone and I heard some bang downstairs. So I came downstairs. I opened the door and Jimmy was standing there with a strange look on his face. And he said, I have something to show you, and when I show it to you, I don't think you're going to like me anymore. And I don't recall what I said back. Or he said something like, oh, because you're so principled, you're not going to like me now. And he showed me this lottery ticket, and I looked it over, and he's like, look at it. And it said like $2 million on it or something. And I didn't react at all, and I just said, I'm on the phone now. I got to go upstairs. So I gave him the ticket back, shut the door, and went back upstairs. I just didn't care at all.
I came home and Russell said, Dad called, he won $2 million. I said, yeah. And I didn't really believe when Father called, and he said, did Russ tell you I won $2 million on a lottery ticket? And I said, I don't believe it. He said, I'm going to go over. He said, would you believe it if you see the ticket? I said, sure. So he came over, and he showed me the ticket, and I looked at it. And I looked at it again, and I went, wow, you really won. And Russ was on the phone, and I said, he's trying to show it to Russ. And Russ said, I'm on the phone. Don't bother me with this trivial stuff.
It didn't strike me at the time that it was so unusual, but I thought about it afterwards, and I said, now there's an unusual reaction to a parent winning $2 million.
It was on a Sunday when he told us. My friend and I were at home. She had come in, we were having lunch and coffee, and he came in, and he didn't often stop to talk to me, but he came by, he says, oh, guess what, And I said, what? So she pushed this ticket in front of us, see what I won, $2 million, And my friend couldn't believe it, so he showed it to both of us, And I was thrilled for him, I said, that's great. God, how many people do we know that turn out to get $2 million?
So he went away with the lottery ticket, and he came back later on that night. And one of the first things he said to me was I don't remember his exact words, but he's like, I'm not going to pay your tuition now, That was one of the first things he said when he came back. when he initially came, I was alone. When he came back, and Mom and Ken were there, and he got mad. He just sort of angrily said to me, totally out of the blue, he's like, "This doesn't mean I'm going to help you out with your tuition now." And then he also told Mom. At the time, he kept threatening to take Mom to court to get her alimony cut off, and he said, "I'm still going to do this, you know." And he was. Neither one of us had like brought up or even hinted at the subject, but he got really defensive about. It was just really bizarre. And actually, Mom thought that was funny. She said, "Well, I'm glad to see this money hasn't changed you."
We got to go to the lottery with him while he collected his first check. And we also got a ride to the East Boston to where he deposits some of his money and all that. And he took us to the lottery so that we'd be sure we knew that he won the money. Because, it's kind of unbelievable in a way,
Went to the lottery, Christian cashed it in. And then we went out to dinner, lunch. And I said, "Geez," I never win anything. And Grandma said, "Neither do I." So he said, "Wait a minute." So he went to the machine and he got out 10 tickets for each of us to scratch. And with the stipulation that if we won more than $500, we would have to split it with him. Otherwise, we could keep it.
I'm glad he won the money because he lost his job last year in February, and he won the money shortly after, like July, it seemed like God's taken better care of him than a lot of good people.
A little extra money doesn't hurt anybody.
I mean, he was in the house one weekend, and they have coupons in the paper for the local restaurants. And there was a coupon for $8 off, and he's taking the coupon out of my paper. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm cutting the coupon off for $8. I said, "It's my paper." He said, "Well, you're going to go?" And I said, "Well, I might." He said, "Well, he goes to that restaurant sometimes." And I said, "Well, that's too bad. That's my paper." And I go there, pay 35 cents, and get your own $8 coupon. And I just thought it was kind of strange that he would even care, enough to cut it out. But he's called me up sometimes and, on page 32 of this coupon, are you going to use it? If not, save it for me, which I just think it's really strange.
He's very obsessive about how he spends money. He's very obsessive about using coupons. Anytime he goes out to eat, there has to be a coupon involved or it's not going to happen. He's obsessive about accumulating his frequent flyer miles. He won't do hardly any traveling kind of thing, like rental cars or hotels that don't go right into the frequent flyer account.
To me, I would think if I had money that one of the good things is that I could just go out and buy things without worrying about, oh gee, can I afford this? And if you want it, you just buy it and don't worry about it, not just, oh gee, is it on sale? Do I have a coupon and this and that? Well, maybe that's just a hard thing to overcome. Maybe I would be the same way, I don't know.
It's strange. Like he'll spend, he gambles a lot. He just spends a lot of, he spends a lot of money on like going to Las Vegas, 7 or 8 times a year. And he just thinks that money is really important. He'll use, he's really into like using coupons and just getting something for nothing. And it's like he'll go into, I think we have about 30 or 40 wine glasses from Papagino's. Because like every time he goes to a restaurant, he just likes to take wine glasses and just, he's sort of like cheap yet extravagant at the same time.
When we were married, I remember getting all the kids' shoes at one point. Went to a reliable shoe store and got everyone a pair of shoes, and he was quite angry with me because I had spent all that money at once. And there was no need of it. It was very hard. Just each September when they were younger, getting clothes for school, he would get really upset. They don't need new clothes for school. What's wrong with this? And that kind of thing.
He'll return the bottles for the nickel and then spend $350 on scratch ticket. That's probably the best kind of contradiction in him.
There was enough money. He just didn't want to spend it that way. or maybe he wanted me to ask permission. I'm not sure, but he really would get upset with me when I would make the most ordinary, what I thought were ordinary purchases.
I think he probably goes to Las Vegas at least every 6 or 8 weeks. He loves scratch tickets with the lottery. I'd say any track. Even when he comes to visit me in Florida, he has to fit the track in somewhere, once or twice, even if it's a long weekend.
It's like he certainly has a lot of money, and he'll spend it on some things, but none on other things. It's kind of like he has these 2 lists in his head. Like, this is things you can't spend money on, and these are things you shouldn't spend money on. And just you can spend money to go to Las Vegas 7 times a year. That's okay, but you can't spend money to give your kids money for college. That's that's on the not okay list.
I know Grandma also said a few months ago. She said, I heard that he paid off all of your tuition and gave you a lot of money as well. Is that true? And I said, no, that's not true either.
Well, as he did with all of us, he always implied that he was putting us through college, working hard to pay all those college bills, which is of course totally untrue.
Oh yeah, and then she also said, and then he made you promise not to tell anyone, which is their little kicker there.
In fact, the children had gotten saving bonds from their grandparents when they were younger, and I didn't have access to a bank since I was confined at home. I did not have a car. And at one point he talked me into signing the bonds over because he said the bonds were not a good investment. And I fought with him about it, and then I thought, well, he's not going to steal them anyway. We'll just put them in the bank and not argue about this. But as it turned out, he did steal them because I never saw the money again.
But I think the lottery would be nice in someone else's hands. They could do a lot. If I won the lottery, I'd give everybody at least $10,000 right then and there.
I'm sure I'd do something frivolous with it, I mean, I wouldn't buy a baseball team or anything, but,
Buy a house up in the hills by myself, a couple cars, a couple women. That's all I need.
Tell you the truth, another friend of mine, roommate, we had a whole plan. We would, if we won, without telling anyone, like that night, we were going to jump on a plane and fly to Europe, Paris, have dinner for a night or two, spend a night or two, then fly back. Then we're going to have this big party for everyone, and just enjoy life, not be stressed,
Probably the old man's dreams is like buy a house, and then help your family, or
I'd quit my other job too, probably, and I'd spend a lot of it and, I don't know, take care of my family and set them up with like college and stuff.
But I think I would basically see what everybody wants to do. I mean, maybe Russ wants to be a public defender. And he, if he just wanted to volunteer somewhere, he could do that if he had another income. Which I could provide for if I had somebody. So whatever anybody wanted to do, as long as I could pay for it without reducing myself to poverty. I mean, obviously I would want to have something for myself too. But I think basically I'd see what everybody wanted to do. It might help someone realize some of the dreams that maybe they may not be able to do otherwise. I don't know.
About some of these homeless people that I see around in these streets out here, I would get some type of building, some of these buildings that I see empty, and invest some money and maybe get some legal advice about how to, go about housing people in some kind of housing project, and maybe just get a program going, period.
First, we'd buy a building and start a theater, and then we'd pay all our actors. And then after we did that, we'd probably buy a house, and then we'd buy our parents' houses, and then we'd go to Europe. And then we'd probably set aside a college fund for any future children. And then we'd start buying toys. A car, a stereo, a shop with lots of equipment and circular saws.
I have no specific plan at all.
You are who you are. And I mean, financially, I mean, that's just like one aspect of life, so.
It's just what you make of it, I think.
Depends on the person, whether or not they've got, got it together.
But actually, I don't think money changes people and inside. Outside, probably, yeah.
And I would say that, our collective attitudes towards our father, I wouldn't say that we really look at him as a parental role model to be taken seriously. In fact, I think he's more, at best he's just fairly amusing, and at worst he's just, a pretty perverse individual.
We all assume we're just gonna go down to the Cape and go fishing or something, and we had all our Cape clothes and our sweatshirts and started wearing boots, and as we got to the driveway, Jimmy said, I think we won't go to the Cape. I think we'll go to Disney World instead. It was like, it was really a bizarre feeling. It was so many conflicting things. It was like, I was like, wow, that sounds, obviously it sounded like it'd be a lot of fun. But it'd also be like, gee, what's Mom gonna think? And it was, even then it was pretty clear that Jimmy was just doing it to annoy Mom in some degree.
He used to pick up the kids and not tell me where he was going and not come home till 2 or 3 in the morning. Took him to Florida one time when we told him he was taking down the Cape.
Spent a lot of money just flipping off to Disney World as we did some nights, and then we were gone for a few days at the last minute with, a couple people or 3 kids and 2 adults or whatever the package was at that time. I don't regret ever having done that. I do regret having spent the money, because 3 weeks later when you find out it's been $2,000, you really didn't. I can't say that I didn't want to.
I oftentimes wondered if he knew what stress this was putting on her, not knowing where your children are, but he would do that on quite a few occasions.
It probably did, but I didn't do it with the intent of upsetting her. I just did it with the intent of being a little weird and having a good time, which I usually did.
We probably had a little bit too much drink. I'm sure we did. But Jimmy came up, well, let's go to Florida tonight. And I was really angry at my husband anyway, because he was making my vacation like nothing. And I said, I can't possibly go to Disney World without Eddie. Eddie was like 7 or something at the time. So I strolled into my mother-in-law's house, and I woke up Eddie, and I said, no, if you're really quiet, you're going to go to Disney World. Now, Eddie was like zipper lip, packed our stuff, and out the door we went, and got on a plane, and we called my mother-in-law, and at that time we were in Atlanta, Georgia, and she didn't even know we were gone. And my ex-husband hadn't woken up yet. And she goes, I said, I just want you to know Eddie's fine, he's with me. She goes, Eddie's upstairs sleeping. I says, no, Eddie's here with me. And she says, well, where are you at? I said, Atlanta, Georgia. And she says, well, but does Buddy know that? She used to call my husband Ed, Buddy. I says, apparently not, because you didn't even know he was gone, So anyway, from Georgia, we had to fly into Orlando, so I called back again by this time. I got my ex-husband on the phone. So I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. The good news is we're no longer in Atlanta, Georgia. The bad news is we're in Orlando, Florida. And you could just about see the smoke coming out of the telephone wires, but he said, he says, better get yourself right back up here. And I says, well, we're this close, we're going to Disney World. Jimmy took us, and I've got better things to do than fly up and down the East Coast on jumbo jets today, But it was a memory that I will never forget, and it was wonderful. Bizarre, but wonderful.
Let's see. Well, he always used to get upset when we left our school books on the counter, like by the kitchen door. And I don't know why they bothered him, but it did. For some reason, we left them there anyway, because it seemed really natural. You leave your books there, you grab them on the way out the door to school. He'd said it, a bunch of times that he didn't want them there. So one day, for whatever reason, he just took all our school books and just tore them up and destroyed them. Which, I think the person most disturbed by it was Mom. Mom was really upset because then she had to go to the school and explain that, my husband tore up their books, because they were school property. I'm sure it was incredibly embarrassing and difficult to deal with for her.
Well, I remember going to the school. Going to the school and explaining it to the principal because I didn't want, because I remember the children were really upset because they figured they'd get yelled at school because their books were destroyed. And there was no explanation. So I just went in and told the principal what happened and said that I would pay for the books. And I remember her sitting down with me and telling me, you have more problems than the books.
I'd say Jimmy's he's just a really compulsive person. Like he'll just get like one little kick and just drive it into the ground. Like I remember when I was 5 or 6 or 7, he just got really into baseball cards. So sometimes like, you know, he'd get drunk and at 3 or 4 in the morning he'd buy like hundreds and hundreds of packs of baseball cards and like be sitting down there and sitting in the den and like sorting baseball cards and buying gum. I mean, I guess it isn't really a bad thing. It was just like strange, you know, going downstairs at 3 or 4 in the morning and, you know, chewing gum with Dad and talking about baseball cards and then going to school the next morning.
Well, he can be very obsessive about things. You know, he gets really obsessive about certain movies every once in a while. Which, you know, there are certain movies he's seen, you know, 30, 40, 50 times in the theater. Then he buys, you know, 10 or 20 copies when they come out in video and gives them out to everyone. So you think they should have them?
I recall him doing a lot of things. I recall him not coming home a lot. I remember one Christmas he got angry with me, and he took all the presents from under the tree, Christmas Eve, and threw them in a garbage bag, and he took them downstairs and threw them away. And then he went to bed, he was drunk. So I went back downstairs and pulled everything out and straightened things out so the kids wouldn't be disappointed when they got up Christmas morning.
In his way, he certainly cares about all of his kids very much. It just comes out really bizarrely sometimes.
He always plays with money on Christmas. One year, I think he and David went to California, and David got a speeding ticket which cost $70 or something in Christmas. His father gave him a little note and said, "That's $70 I spent for your parking ticket. Merry Christmas. That was your present."
He always has this really bizarre, extreme sense of wanting to treat all his kids equally for whatever reason. It's like, you know, like, which is really silly that like they never really care about stuff like that, you know. Like, but he tries to place some sort of arbitrary, equal monetary value on how he treats all of us, because, you know, it's all money for Jimmy. You know, like Christmas gifts this year. You know, I think Ken got a roll of quarters. Of course, Ken goes on all these trips, you know, everywhere, so Ken gets treated well. You know, I think I got $60 because Jimmy takes me to lunch, like, you know, maybe once a week at work. So that's part of my the great equation.
I strongly suspect he'd set it up in such a way that he would leave money to all of his kids, but it would be in this completely perverse manner, such like we can only some trust fund, and like we can only access the money when we're 45 if we want to buy a house, or something that really would have no benefit to us for quite a while.
And no matter what, through all the ups and downs, I love him dearly, and there's nothing I wouldn't do for him.
No, I think it's very interesting. When I think I know that he's very much distanced himself from me or from anyone, something will arrive in the mail, a stuffed toy, something very funny, just for no reason whatsoever.
Somebody says they wouldn't be happier after they won the lottery, they're lying.
For his sake, I'm not sure that winning the $2 million is a good idea. I think he was out of a job at the time, and I'm sure he has $250,000 or $500,000 or something in the bank, but he may have, if he hadn't won the lottery money, he may have actually gone back to work or found some way to make some money and become a relatively responsible human being.
I don't have any problems about having to work and get in the rat race and go get a job that I had that was in the $50,000 to $65,000 range, that kind of stuff. And I had a nice life. It wasn't bad. This is just enhancing.
I think certainly he's financially more secure. think it's probably zapped some of his ambition to get going and get a job, which he certainly would have had to do otherwise. So in that way, I don't know that it is doing any good. I'm not sure what he does every day with his life.
I'm sure it's a mixed bag, a double-edged sword. I'm sure that some people spend it real fast and then have to start all over again. I'm sure that some people do manage their winnings properly. It all depends on the individual.
We've known Jimmy all our lives. We know him well. And this is the way he is. And you know, I mean, I have a couple people say to me, they're like, "Yeah, but you know, money changes people. People change." And I'm like, "Not him."
It seems bizarre to me that any wacko can walk up to a drugstore or any place and spend $5 and end up with $2 million. But it happened.
I think his mother wanted him to move out previously, and I think maybe this was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back sort of thing, and there was really no reason for him to stay. Certainly he had the money, even though he had it before also, but maybe she was a little upset that she didn't share more in it too, and I don't know, really.
It's not like it's as big a deal as everybody thinks. It's everybody says it's $2 million, that's true, but you only get $100,000 a year for that instance in 19 installments.
It's money. That's what everyone wants. You know, how can they help?
Yeah, besides having a lot of money, he doesn't really have to let to show for his life. You know, I don't see him having a lot of really strong relationships with anyone.
I don't really begrudge the money. I don't really. I know I've heard some people say they're like, "Oh, that's so terrible. He's so undeserving," but I just don't really care.
I think it was pretty exciting to know someone who actually won $2 million, because even though you read it in the paper, you never really think you're going to know someone. But other than that, I mean, the rest of us still working for a living, and as far as I know, no one had any great amount of money given to them that changed their life in any way.
But, you know, it's like a lot of people say, some people go crazy and have no control over it, and I've tried to maintain my own form of wacky, mature control over this, and it's worked so far.
I'm not sure that I'm in favor of legalized gambling, or at least the lottery.
I mean, for the most part, I feel like people are being taken advantage of. You know, a lot of people who don't have such high incomes spend a lot of their small incomes on lottery, and you know, chances are they're not going to win, and in a way, it's shameful.
I think that it may cause more social ills than it solves. I mean, it's useful. It produces tax revenue for schools, and that's all good, but it's a very regressive, the lottery is essentially a very regressive tax, albeit a voluntary tax. Mostly lower class and working class people buy lottery tickets who really can't afford it, and I don't know, man. I just don't think it makes our lives better.
I think it's a big con, you know, that to think that there's really, what, 1 in 1 million, 2 million, maybe, or probably even worse, chance of winning. And, you know, why bother?
Well, periodically in the mail you get coupons for free lottery tickets, maybe every 3 months or something. I used to give them to David, but then I decided to start using it myself. So once in a while I give it to him, but I'm more apt to use it myself now.
Yes, and I continue to buy them, and I probably always will. One of my son says, "What's the purpose? What's the point, Dad?" And he's probably right, but it's still fun to buy them.
Well, somebody's got to win, and you know, stranger things have happened, so you never know.